Welcome along in everybody to the Red Card Radio News episode. We hope this is the one-stop shop, the one place you need to come for news in and relating to the English Premier League, English football, and subsequent competitions that English teams are involved in. And then other things that we like to talk about. This is our kind of our catch-all episode. If you are new to Red Card Radio, if you're just stumbling across us, if you could hit that subscribe button, ring the sub notification bell so you're alerted when we drop new episodes. If you're on one of our podcast sites, definitely would appreciate a follow, a 5-star review if your platform so allows. Drop comments on YouTube, hit us up on Twitter, join our Discord. It's in the description wherever you're watching it. All those things help us to connect and grow this community. All things that we would really appreciate. So we say thank you to you guys for doing all of those things. All right, so the news this week. Pretty quiet week. Nothing outrageous. I mean, if you guys checked out yesterday's episode, Wednesday's episode, the review, just a few quick tidbits we need to talk about managers getting fired, and then players being suspended for 8 matches. Nothing really huge, right?
No, nothing bad.
Easy
week. We'll be out here in like 10 minutes now.
Yeah, easy.
I don't mind to provide some bow tying and then natural segue into our first point.
Please do.
As I read an interesting post that Tottenham under Levy have only once renewed a manager's contract.
Wow.
And the only time we have renewed a manager's contract, we fired Pochettino in the first year of his renewal.
Yo.
So with that in mind, plus our recent history of about 4 managers in 3 years, with that in mind, the conclusion of this point was Tottenham and Levy are playing like Roman-era Chelsea without spending like Roman-era Chelsea, which is never going to work.
No.
Going manager to manager to manager to manager without supporting any of those managers is never going to work. It's round peg and square hole.
You're just wasting,
square peg and a round hole.
You're just wasting money, right? Like it's just like you're
wasting money.
If
we don't have money to spend on players, stop wasting them on managers.
The humorous thing about Daniel Levy and his manager carousel over the last 5 years is that he continued to offer managers contracts to May of 2023, to June of 2023. So it was Pochettino, it was Jose, it was Nuno, it was Conte. He had 4 managers essentially that he gave contracts to expire in June of 2023 that he had to pay out. Essentially.
Was this a write-off?
I don't know. Some sort of tax burden that he is able to, sweep under the rug.
Hey, well, you know what? We're heading into this summer. Free a burden.
Yeah, man. You and Brendon Rodgers can rock out.
Hey, Brad, remember that war chest?
Yeah.
There it is. Paying managers to not coach us.
Before we get to Chelsea, because we're going to get to Chelsea. I did ask you this question. I loaded you up for this opportunity, Sean. I asked you if you would be okay with Brendon Rodgers managing Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
I don't have a problem with Brendon Rodgers as a manager.
Okay.
In general.
Okay.
What I do have a problem with is Brendon Rodgers managing Daniel Levy-led Tottenham Hotspur. Because Brendon Rodgers is a good manager. He needs a little time to get his feet under himself. He was relatively successful at Tottenham or at Liverpool. Relatively
until the wheels fell off the bus. Yeah, until the wheels fell off the bus, he was doing well.
Yeah, he was given shit, provided okay teams. Like, I'm sure Tamzy would probably eviscerate me for saying this, but I didn't think it was that awful. And then he goes to Leicester. They're in Europe. Like they played in Europe. They had some decent teams.
They won an FA Cup.
They won an FA Cup.
But they seemed like they were perennially underachieving, though, right? Like
sure.
It seemed like they were always right there, and like they'd finish 5th by 1 point. Like they'd be in 4th all year, and then they would just fall off and finish 5th, or
And that seems to be an MO of Brendon Rodgers. Which is not gonna. And I think what I was getting at is that's not gonna fly for Levy.
Oh,
because he's going to hold Rodgers to Conte, Mourinho,
Well,
to
that's the thing.
Pochettino. He's going to hold him to those
Spurs
standards.
manager right there.
But this was kind of my point last week when I brought this up about Daniel Levy's. Like, his expectations are, I want to be fighting for the Premier League, I want to be fighting for the Champions League, I want to be winning FA Cups, things like that. That's in Levy's mind, that's what he wants to be doing. That's what he thinks Tottenham Hotspur should be doing. So he goes out and gets managers that can do it. But then
he doesn't.
But
he
then
doesn't do the ownership things that require those.
Exactly.
He doesn't do his part.
Yeah, he's like a fan, and he's like, Tottenham should be doing this. And then he's like, I hired the guy to do it, but why aren't we doing it?
Does the business deals? Aren't you guys getting like an F1 track underneath there now too?
Who knows?
Yo, the London Grand Prix.
North London Derby. We'll go under both stadiums.
Ooh, interesting. Get out of Silverstone and come to North London.
I think you're actually getting a go-kart track underneath White Hart Lane.
That'd be fun.
Nope. The two I really want are either long-term, well, relative, 2-3 years for Stellini, or I want Thomas Frank.
I just don't think Thomas Frank is going to come. That's my thing about Thomas Frank.
I don't think he will either. But his style of play is what I described last week or the week before, whenever we were talking about. I believe it was last week. What I described, the more I thought about it, was Thomas Frank. It's high energy. It's kind of that Bielsa a couple years ago with Leeds, when they just came up and were like, hey, we don't have defense, so we're not going to play defense. We're just going to attack for 90 minutes, and either we're going to win 5-4 or we're going to lose 7-1. We don't care, but we're like, it worked for them. But like with better players, that strategy is going to work better. Now, if we have the legs for it with a 30-year-old Kane and a 30-year-old son, I don't know. Maybe we need to refresh those spots, and we talked about that. And we'll get into that at some point. But like Thomas Frank plays that pressing, attacking ball, and not just that it's attractive. It just makes the other team uncomfortable all the time, the whole game.
I think it is attractive. I think it's enjoyable. Yeah. I think he's a good manager to go after.
Those are my two. And Stellini for the continuity, because I knew you were going to ask me before you asked me.
I mean, I think that kind of feels like a Pochettino type situation where you're like getting him, and maybe the expectation isn't to win right away, but you're trying to build to something. Now, whether or not Levy has the stomach for that, whether or not Tottenham fans have the stomach for that right now, I'm not sure.
You mean Frank?
Yeah. What did I say?
Yeah.
Did I say
Stellini? I threw in Stellini right there at the end, and then you went back to what we were talking about.
I meant Thomas Frank. Sorry. Yeah. I was referring to Thomas Frank.
Because if he's going to play that high energy, you probably want to cash out Kane and Son. They're just like, you don't want to. They can do it right now, but do you want to have the last 3-4 years of that you have of their prime, of them just running their legs off the entire game?
Yeah.
You're probably not using them in the best way you possibly could right now. So you might want to just cycle them out, get your 200 million, like you said, and bring in your Matomas, bring in your next high energy player that has the legs for it.
Yeah.
But
Mr. Grey Boys.
Yeah.
I assume, based on the last 6 months of how you've talked about Graham Potter, that you are very disappointed and distraught about him being relieved of his duties at Chelsea Football Club. Am I correct?
I am very disappointed. In a couple of different ways, right? Because I've always been manager but I've always been a Graham Potter fan. I was a Potter fan back in Brighton. I thought Potter would have been really good for Tottenham. I thought he would have been really good for Chelsea. I don't think he was dealt a fair hand. I think he was dealt too large of a hand. But I want to get into the Chelsea fan base a little bit, right?
Oh, interesting.
Because if you get into Chelsea Twitter before the season was like, yeah, we need to rebuild. We need to refresh the squad. There's issues. There's age. We don't have the right player profiles. Whatever. Right? So, fan base realizes it's a project. We've been a cup squad. We've been winning trophies, but we haven't really competed in the Premier League since Conte. Right? We finished 3rd, 4th. think one season we got close.
I mean,
That was it.
to be fair, the last 4 or 5 years has been the City Liverpool show in the Premier League.
Correct. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, Chelsea expects to be competing with Liverpool and City because we were competing with them all across Europe.
Financially, you're competing with them. So, well,
Right.
not Liverpool, but is it City?
Right. But on the field too, like that's what we would assume we would be doing. Okay. We want a win now project guy is what the fan base wants, because if you have a project, then you assume there's going to be mistakes. You assume there's going to be a lot more losses early on in that project to build something. So again, Graham was dealt a hand with like a 7 managers deep squad, 7 different viewpoints. We have a different issue than Tottenham does, because Roman backed the manager, and it looks like Todd's ready to spend the money to back the manager too. So now what do you do? And we also didn't offload enough players. Like, we bought everybody, because I think Todd Boehly was like, oh, that's an opportunity. I should jump on that. And like, cool, you're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong for jumping on that opportunity. But you got to clean house.
Yeah, like there's some thoughts that Chelsea could be in financial fair play trouble this summer, right? If they don't sell certain players by a certain time, right? Like they have to sell players by a certain point.
July, I think.
Like July 1st or something like that. It's
for it to count for this year's money.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. It's like it's not crazy. It's like we got to come up with like I think like 50 mil.
I mean I'm not sure how.
I know. I'm sorry.
That could be one player.
It could
right,
be.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean,
or 2 players, 1 or 2 players. We need to sell like 12.
Yeah, that's
like,
the bigger
we
issue.
get rid of 1 or 2 players before June, and like if we're not going to play Chaloba after we sign him to an 8-year contract or 6-year contract, then like cool, there's our 50 mil.
Well, no, but he's not. He's not worth 50 million. The problem is that you guys are going after Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique, these type of managers. These managers aren't going to come in right now. Like they're going to come in the summer. It's going to be like an Erik ten Hag situation, right? And then he's going to want to vet the players himself, see who they are, see what they're capable of. Now, granted, if Chelsea Football Club just sells somebody and they're not available to him, then fine. You know, he'll show up and he'll have the players available to him. But
apparently the latest rumors, and I'm not picking a manager this time, I want to be clear, because every time I've picked one, they haven't stayed. So we can let it chill. If I was picking one, it'd be Jose, because I just love Jose Mourinho.
You're such a troll.
What? But Mudryk at the top, that'd be the counterattack. Like, I'm here for it.
He had a really good shot against Aston Villa when he was on the break. So that's
yeah. But anyways, I do have a manager that I don't want, and apparently rumor is Nagelsmann is willing to start now, and I think so is Enrique. I think they're both willing to start now. There's just one person I don't want. Pochettino.
Why?
He's Spursy.
No, he's not. It's only Spurs are Spursy. He went to Paris and won.
He went to Paris and did the bare minimum.
He still won.
Okay, but Paris Saint-Germain's expectations are not to win Ligue 1. That's a guarantee.
Wasn't last year.
It's not to win whatever the French FA Cup is. It's a guarantee. You're expected to win the Champions League, and he didn't.
Okay.
And he failed and was out in less than 18 months?
He took a back line of Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Davinson Sanchez, and God knows who we had in right back to the Champions League final.
Well, wasn't Toby Alderweireld in that squad and Jan Vertonghen in that squad?
Yeah.
They were injured or out.
Oh, okay.
So he used the squad of players that he had.
I think it's fair to say that I'm also not certain about Pochettino's pedigree.
And if you think that Graham Potter was controversial in the Chelsea Twitter, Todd, sign Pochettino if you want to see some toxicity. Because I'm telling you,
I mean, okay.
the first game we lose, the first goal that's scored against us, Chelsea Twitter is gonna blow up
I'm
Stamford
sold.
Bridge for him.
I'm sold. Todd Bowley, get Pochettino. I'm sold.
Where I generally stand on this is I completely agree with you, Brad, that I liked Graham Potter. I thought he deserved more time. I thought they were going to give him more time. I thought they were honestly going to give him more time, at least next full season, like this year and next full season. I thought or at least a preseason, sure.
Yeah.
And if it next year starts out bad, then it starts out bad. But I also, as a sports fan, have to understand that the owner has to go back to the manager and be like, I bought you $500 million worth in players.
No.
Well, it doesn't matter. He put it in.
Brad. Whoa. It wasn't 500 million. It was only 300 million. That's a terrible argument.
But
what about his summer signings?
Summer signings don't count because those were Tuchel.
They were for Thomas Tuchel.
Whatever.
That was the point I was
That's
making.
$500 million in players into this roster. Why are they not playing better?
I think
that's a very valid question from an owner.
I think that it's a reasonable thing to ask. But I also think it would be a reasonable thing for Graham Potter to retort, like, I didn't necessarily ask for these players. Like, if you're saying, like, oh, I spent 300, like, oh, look at this nice car I bought you. If I didn't want the car in the first place, you can't be mad at me for driving the old car I like, right? So
hold on. So Graham Potter was running an 11 on 11, like, in practice, and had to have another 9 versus 9 on the other side just to have all the players doing something.
Yeah, like there were way too many players at Chelsea Football Club. I think the bigger issue here, to me, this is what it seems like, is that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, all of the talk was Graham Potter's fine. He's safe. It doesn't matter. He's got to the end of the year. Even you yourself said, personally, as long as we don't get relegated, I don't care. And no one thought that Chelsea were to get relegated. Like no, that was never a reasonable, like,
right.
Even though you guys don't have 40 points yet, you know.
Right. We need one more.
Your position was, as long as we don't get relegated, I'm happy. Graham Potter should stay, and I think that's a reasonable stance to take. But then, you know, things at Stamford Bridge got a little spicy. You know, I think if you guys lost away to Villa and it wasn't at home and there weren't 30,000 people booing.
40,000 people, yeah.
Booing the team, and then
and singing "You Don't Know What You're Doing."
And yeah, like I think that would have been. I think that the board made a knee-jerk reaction because of fan unrest, and I think that is not necessarily a good thing for Chelsea Football Club long term. And also, I think it's not necessarily a good thing when you're looking at these managers. And so, like, if I'm Nagelsmann or Luis Enrique, and like some things aren't going well for me, and then the crowd gets upset, like could I just get sacked because the crowd's mad? Like, you're gonna make people mad.
I'm interested to see, because, like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back here? Because, like, they said progress. We just want to see progress, and I guess there wasn't enough progress.
But you don't
progress.
You don't measure progress over the course of like 2 weeks. You have to measure it over the course of the entire year.
Right.
And
which
also,
I'm thinking.
And also saying progress being like if you were to equate progress to league positions, that's a terrible way to do it. You should equate progress to.
I don't think it is.
It should be eye test. 100% it should be eye test.
Right. And like, take my Chelsea manager bias out.
You guys didn't look good, but
the eye test says there wasn't leaps and bounds improvement. And, like, again, to my point from yesterday's pod, João Felix adds flair, but nothing else.
No substance.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want. He's definitely not worth 100 mil. He's definitely not worth 80 mil. He's probably not even worth 50 mil to me, with the squad that we have and the players that we have in the squad that can do what he does. And then Kuku coming in, we don't need him.
I mean, the thing about it is, if you guys have a buyback clause for Tammy Abraham at 80 million, and you need a center forward, why would you not try and exercise that first?
Yeah.
Like, you have Lukaku coming back. You're praying you can sell Lukaku to literally anyone, Anderlecht for 30 million. Like, you're just praying you can get rid of him, right? Like,
Yes.
any amount of
Go to
money.
Inter. Get back for whatever. Inter, give us something.
Like you're just you're praying that he'll go. You got Oba, who is gonna go. You've got all these different, like, center. Kai Havertz might probably end up at Bayern Munich over the summer. Like, so you need a number 9, and Kai Havertz isn't really a number 9. Pulisic's probably gonna go. Like, you've got a lot of players who are on their way out.
Yes.
So,
Ziyech.
like, if you have an option to get Tammy Abraham, who is a Cobham youth product, he's English. It seems like that's a no-brainer to me.
I like that plan. It sounds good to me. I'm okay if you want to, like, see what the conditions are for Kane first. I'm okay if you want to see what the conditions are for Osimhen are.
Yo,
first.
both of those are 100 million plus.
Right. Like I'm okay with you having that conversation and be like, oh, we'll just take Tammy then. Like, that works for me.
Yeah. I don't know.
Sean's face when I said Kane's conditions are like he didn't just say yesterday that, yeah, maybe we should just get rid of Kane and Son and refresh the squad.
He said it's a possibility.
It's also Kane and Son. First of all, Son's worth more than Kane, and Kane and Son are worth a well, maybe not in current form though. current form. At the beginning of the season, I would have said Son's worth more than Kane, as an overall player. But yeah, Kane with
are you selling him
careening towards 30 goals, coming off a high year.
Tax.
Yeah,
and the English tax.
The English tax is big for Kane.
Right. It's like, I don't think it's feasible for either one of them.
It's going to be $1.20 to Chelsea.
That'd be $1.40 to Chelsea for Kane. Ain't no way I am selling Harry Kane to Chelsea Football Club if I'm Daniel Levy without making it very painful. But the problem is, Todd Bowley would be like, oh yeah, I'll pay you over 13 years.
No, that's done. They already closed that loophole.
Yeah, 5 years is all you're allowed to amortize it out.
You amortize it, but that doesn't have to say anything about payments. You can structure payments however the hell you want.
True.
So it's about your account. We're talking about accounting techniques, not how you're actually paying for them.
True.
So should we let's turn our attention quickly to another London club, right? Talk about this Fulham situation. So if you remember to the FA Cup match, the FA Cup quarterfinal match between Fulham and Manchester United, Mitrovic was sent off for pushing the referee, Chris Kavanagh, I think it was, and Marco Silva was also sent off for having choice words for Kavanagh. And I think all of our initial reaction was, it's honestly not that bad. Like, obviously you can't put your hands on officials, but he didn't shoot him, he didn't punch him, it wasn't that bad. And so we were all of the opinion that, Mitrovic is probably going to get suspended for additional games more than just the 3 for what he initially got the red card for. I think my number was like 5. I don't know what your guys' numbers were, but turns out that the independent regulator who this situation was referred to has banned Mitrovic for 8 games.
Yes. So, but let's balance it out, because you said 5 games total. So let's explain where that came from. So it's 3 for the red for violent conduct. It's 3 because he put his hands on a match official. And then it's 2 because he was yelling and swearing at the official.
Okay.
On top of the original.
The yelling.
So he got an extra 5 games. So you weren't wrong.
Yelling and swearing. Oh, I meant 5 games total, including the violent conduct 3 card. Yelling and swearing at an official is the most kindergarten reason to suspend a professional sports player.
I think it was saying there was some sort of bias to the ref.
I mean,
biasness or something like that. That's what Marco Silva said.
I'm sorry, you're a big boy. You can handle it, Chris Kavanagh. You're getting cursed at by literally everyone the entire match, and you're probably cursing right back at them. You're all adults. You can handle it. Like, I don't want to hear you whining and complaining. And I know Chris Kavanagh's not whining and complaining per se, but like, oh, I'm sorry, they hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. That's the most childish reason to additionally suspend somebody in professional sports.
Apparently, the FA wants it tougher.
Yeah,
They're appealing it.
The FA's a choice.
Wonderful organization that does amazing things for the English football game.
Sure.
Yeah. I thought this entire situation was interesting because originally I didn't see much more than a 3 in it. Honestly, like he just like it's not like he grabbed the ref by his scruff or anything. Like he just kind of bumped him. Can't do it. I was with you. Maybe a 5 for the extra bump.
It was the most like, hey, I'm talking to you. Pay attention. Look at me when I'm talking to you, shove.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It was like, it wasn't, I'm going to murder you. I'm grabbing you by the hands and I'm shoving you. And it was.
Yeah, like if he grabbed him by his jersey and like gripped him, okay.
Very
now
different.
we need to fear for this guy.
Safety.
We need to protect him and send a message. I did see a graphic at some point that fell just short of Mitrovic, but it listed, I think it was the top 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
Longest suspensions, and a lot of them were months. The longest was the guy that was betting for years.
Yeah,
I forget his name. But he was banned for like 27 months or something like that. And then there was a couple. Rio Ferdinand and Vidic were also banned for like 9 and 8 months, and then you got all the way down to the bottom, and the last one was 11 games. And the most before that was like 3 months. So those are clearly probably for different adjudications, given there is such a gap. But you have now put him in a stratosphere that he's probably in the top 10 most heinous punishment that we have handed out over just slightly pushing a ref.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say slightly pushing. He did aggressively shove the ref. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
In the heat of a moment.
Right. But I think the point of the extra games, because I'm with you, he probably doesn't deserve that, but you have to make it clear that you cannot touch a referee. And if you do, then it has to be a strong suspension.
That is true. That's the only reason I'm okay with it, is we don't want to end up with these we always see these crazy South American
there was
videos
a situation
where
in Mexico,
people
just
this week. Like people are like front kicking refs and like chasing them around the pitch.
I agree with you, but he was sent off, and then Fulham went on to get shellacked in the match, and they're out of the FA Cup, and he's going to miss multiple Premier League matches because of it. Like I think that Mitrovic, if he got suspended 3 games, or in an additional 2, if he got suspended 5 games total, I don't think he's ever putting his hands on a ref again.
Yeah. Right, but is that going to stop somebody else? But 8 games, 10 games, stop somebody else.
I don't necessarily buy it when we're talking about like we're using it as a deterrent. That seems unfair to Mitrovic to use his situation as a deterrent. We need to adjudicate his situation for what it is, not as if we let this one slide, something worse is going to happen down the line. We don't convict people of crimes and like punish them more harshly because we're worried that the next crime might be more heinous. You know what I mean? Like we don't if you're caught speeding, right? We don't give you a reckless driving type punishment because we're worried that other people are going to start driving more recklessly than you because you were just like, you just got a slap on the wrist like a normal speeding ticket, right? Like we don't convict the person of murder if they are only guilty of manslaughter. Because we're worried that if people see manslaughter, it's okay to manslaughter, but maybe I'll just manslaughter and it won't matter anymore because it's not murder. You know what I mean? Like you see what I'm saying? We have to judge each case by itself on its own merits for its own, like under its own rationale. Like we can't use this whole, it's going to get worse if we don't act strong here, in my opinion.
I mean, look, if it's 3 games to get a game-winning call, there's players that are going to take that.
But he didn't get a game-winning call. He got sent off. His team lost the FA Cup, and now he's out of the FA Cup.
Right. But that next person, if it's only a 3-game suspension, like, well, that's worth it.
So hold on. I have a question for you. Should Luis Suarez in the World Cup have been suspended for the rest, because he did the handball on the line to stop the Ghanaians from scoring, and then they went on to miss the penalty? And should we have punished Luis Suarez more harshly because of the idea that other people might make a professional red card handball to save a goal in certain situations? I'm just confused.
Where does the line get drawn?
Yeah,
when you touch the ref is what the FA is saying.
I get that, but they need to get over themselves. They're children.
I'm just telling you. They're saying put your hands on the ref. That's the line.
If I'm representing Mitrovic, I am just bringing in video
of Bruno
Well, that too. I'll mix that in to my video of Roy Keane and Manchester United just absolutely pushing this ref back into the stands almost. All of them just crowded around, just bullying him back and back and back and back. Where they just finally, refs decided, whether they're from Manchester or not, that I'm just going to stop calling things against Manchester because I don't want to have to deal with this.
There are plenty of situations that we could point to in the Premier League in English football this year of teams getting in and around the refs.
Not this year. It was Roy Keane. I pulled out Roy Keane, but
I know.
This
but even this year, there have been situations that have been very bad from a lot of teams. Arsenal have been guilty of it. City have been guilty of it. Liverpool have been guilty of it.
I'm sure Tottenham have.
Of surrounding referees and. Obviously it's a situation that needs to stop, and they need to start just issuing yellow cards for it. I'm with it on that, and I'm.
If you are not a captain, you should not be in. You should not be within. I don't know. I don't want to put a halo around them, but if you are not a captain, you shouldn't be in front of the ref.
If you're not a captain and you weren't involved in the play, so I'm the captain. You're my teammate, Sean. You tackle somebody, and the referee's coming up to give you a yellow card, and you're talking to the ref about it. That's fine, in my opinion. But Brad, who's our other teammate, comes in across the field and he's like, you can't give him a yellow card. That should be a yellow card for Brad too.
Yeah, yellow card for Brad.
He's not involved.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
If I come in and do that, it's different because I'm the captain and I'm allowed to talk to the referee.
And there should be an outfield play. Since we're making new rules.
No, this isn't even a new rule. This is just the way it's supposed to be.
That's what it is. That's what the captain's role is.
Since our captain is the goalkeeper, that can't always be us. So there should be an outfield player.
A designee.
A designated player, outfield player that is allowed to talk to the ref.
I guess my point is that Fulham were duly punished. It's not like they went on to win the game. They lost the game. Mitrovic is going to be banned. I'm okay with increasing the ban by a little bit, but I think that it's just this is I think that they're banning him from a deterrent standpoint, and we have to be strong, and oh no, we can't look weak. We have to protect the referees. And I've officiated sports before. Not necessarily at a professional level, but I have officiated baseball tournaments that had some impact, that were in the Little League World Series sphere. It was a state tournament, and these teams would go on and go into state tournaments and regional tournaments and could eventually end up at Williamsport. It's I've done some high level officiating in my life, and you're not allowed to touch referees. I'm not saying that you're allowed to touch referees. Obviously that's wrong, but there was a penalty for it. He got sent off. And if you're trying to say that he deserves more, I'm okay with it to a point. I think 8 total games is too much. That's my opinion.
I think the FA still want more. I agree with you. I think 8 is very excessive, and I think you're looking at why are you taking this into 3 different penalties?
Yeah,
should be, if you want to say 3 games for the violent conduct and then 3 games because it's a referee. Cool.
I could be okay with that. Yeah.
The other thing, real quick before we get out, I also just don't like that this happened in the cup, and they're getting punished in the league for it.
Yeah, but
it's English matches.
I just don't like that personally.
Yeah, the problem
because if it happened in the League Cup, it wouldn't have mattered.
So, but if you're what would have mattered? It would have all domestic cups.
It would have applied. It would have applied equally.
But they do this in Italy.
Wherever the FA rules over.
I know this. I know they do this in Italy, where it's competition specific. So if it's the Coppa Italia or Serie A, Like your punishments are competition specific. But I think the problem with that is like, so say he does that in the FA Cup, right? And then he's gonna it's gonna take him 2 years to play 8 FA Cup matches. You know what I mean?
Maybe, probably more.
It might take him
Probably
3
longer.
years. It might take him 4 years, right? So like he's not playing in the FA Cup again. It's just weird. It gets goofy. It's just albatross hangover. It's gonna be like 4 years later, and it's gonna be Fulham's gonna be coming into the third round of the FA Cup, and they're like, Mitrovic is still suspended from the incident in 2023, and it's like 2027. You're like, what's going on here? But you said before we get out, Sean, we got to go down under, bro. We gotta talk about this situation in Melbourne.
Hey, you should be happy. McLaren went from last to like 5th in the Constructors' Cup.
They picked up some points.
They survived to the end of the race.
Your boy Piastri got points in his home race. Like that's good for McLaren.
All they did was not wreck.
Yo, like Alpine couldn't do that. Alpine's out here taking each other out.
Bottom dwellers all race, and I'm supposed to be happy about okay. I'm supposed to be happy about finishing 9th out of 9.
Yeah, that's true. There were like 12 finishers or something like that, and Carlos Sainz had a 5-second penalty that definitely put him 12th.
Yeah, and we finish. Yeah, we finish in the points because of ridiculous wrecks. Yeah, I'm not happy about this.
I'm as a Mercedes fan and a Lewis Hamilton fan, I'm pretty happy with the result. I'm disappointed that George Russell's car blew up and that he had to retire. That was kind of unfortunate. And George got really, really screwed over by the first red flag, choosing to pit, and then like 2 laps later there was the red card. The red
next
flag.
lap, that lap that he pitted on.
Yeah, it was really, really unfortunate for George because he got us to a great start. And with Lewis right behind him, both the Mercedes cars got off to fantastic starts. George went to first, Lewis went to second, and it would have been interesting to see how they were able to play that with Max behind them. I don't think they would have been able to hold Max off, but it would have been interesting to see if Lewis could have slowed Max up enough to give George, enough time, enough space
to operate. Yeah.
But this is a tale of. This race is all about the red flags, and the way
and the confusion.
I don't even think there was that much confusion per se. I don't know. You seem to be more confused about the situation than I ever was.
Well, yeah, I just didn't understand the rules or what was happening. But our pre-production meeting has kind of cleared it up a little bit. Yeah, but it's weird.
I think the sentiment for most of the drivers was the red flag on 56 when Hülkenberg's tire came off.
Kevin's tire.
Oh, okay, Magnussen. Sorry. When Magnussen's tire came off, was unnecessary. That they could have handled that under a safety car or a virtual safety car and just finished the race under a safety car. I don't know. As I'm always one to point out, I'm fairly new to the sport, so I don't necessarily have an opinion on whether or not red flags are warranted versus safety cars, things like that.
The only comment I'll have on that part is no one's going to know better of driver safety than the drivers.
True. Yeah.
Like they're all competitors going to push, but all of them have been in situations that I'm sure I know the one that comes to mind is Gasly, that they know people that they've grown up with that have died in the sport. None of them are going to push it through a sector that they know that a car is possibly in the way, that if I happen to lose my traction, I could hit them.
Yeah.
None of them are going to push it through that.
And it wasn't even like, and so you put them behind a safety car. It would have been fine.
Put them behind a safety car. They're all good.
And especially at the point of the race, because like they red flagged it, and then you have a restart on lap 57. Like you bunch them all up together on lap 57, 2 laps to go. Like these guys are ultra competitive, and they're like, oh, this is a great opportunity. They're all going to be pushing for it. And so it's unsurprising that the restart there, we lost 6 cars or something like that. Like in 2 turns. It was insane.
Yeah, it was Alonso.
Alonso didn't even do anything. Like,
Right, he ended up 7th.
what?
Third.
Alonso finished 3rd, bro.
No. Sorry, at lap 56, when the red card came out, when the restart happened, before the red flag came out, he dropped to like 7th.
Oh, okay. Before they
Hulkenberg
restacked
was
him.
like 4th.
Before they
Suzuki,
restacked
I think,
him.
was on the podium.
Yeah. You're talking about when they restacked him.
Yeah.
Before they restacked him. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
But Brad, I have to give you a hard time because you predicted that the second place finisher would be 20 seconds behind Max Verstappen. The second place finisher was less than a
Tenth of a second.
tenth. It was like less than 2/10 of a second behind. So egg on your face, bro. Egg on your face. I guess we never mentioned it. The race ended Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso in that order. So that was the podium. But
Alonso was first.
No, he
I think
no,
101st podium.
Oh, 101st. Yeah, okay. I'll buy that.
101st podium.
We've got 4 weeks off before Austria. Is it
3
Austria?
days off before. Hold on.
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan, yeah.
Oh, it's Baku. Yeah, that's right. So, 4 weeks off. Well, so we'll talk to you guys about F1 again when the Premier League's over, essentially.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we got. Hit us up in the comments below. Let us know what you kind of think about this manager carousel that's going on in the Premier League. Where you think managers might land, what kind of profiles people should be looking for, things like that. If you are mad about our characterization of the Mitrovic situation, I'd be also curious to hear your response on that as well. Hit us up on Twitter. That guy up top with me, that's at KSBradG. Down below, that's at Whiteheart_Sean. I am at James Tiffany. Collectively, we can be reached at redcard_radio. And until next time, check back tomorrow. We've got the Premier League preview. Match week 30 coming for you. Should be a good one. Have a good one.